This is part 3 of the YZ. That's all the engine. Everything's all alright. I'll be putting a new piston in. I haven't took the main bearing off the crank yet neither. More stuff come. All these little collars. What I think I said in one of the other videos. What I was ordering. I ordered back swinging arm bolts. They're just the 4 screws for the casing. This is the casing. I've just been cleaning it up. I left the other half at my mate's for him to clean up. I'm getting a YZ85 dropped off tomorrow, but I'm just going to do this first, then fix the YZ85, and then do a video on that. So anyway, we're going to start putting this back together now. It's the sealing for round the middle come. First, before it gets late, I'm going to bang that main bearing out of there. The other main bearing out of there come off. It's on the side of the crank. The main bearings are in the freezer because they shrink, and then you heat this casing up and it expands the casing. And with the bearings shrunk, they're just going easy. So that's that bearing out of there. Like I say, that one's attached to the crank. Now I'll pop the seals out because we're going to have to heat these up. This seal first, and I'm doing this casing first, the clutch side. It's a seal kit. And it's that seal you want. It's the biggest diameter out of them all in the pack because the collar fits in there. So that's the seal you want. And that's the seal in now. Just go around there with some assembly oil or 2-stroke oil works. Now I'm going to get the crank and pull the main bearing off the crank because it's still stuck on. And that's that part of the tool on. It's best to tighten these up as tight as you can because that grips behind the bearing. Tighten them up dead tight and it grips under the bearing, but when I was tightening them up I heard like a crack. So hopefully that's cracked. So anyway, we'll get the top part on and it extracts it off. And I'm just showing this just in case anybody's doing the bike, they can just copy off these videos and just fix their own bike. It saves costing a lot of money in a bike shop. So that's the tool on all on the crank now. After what I've just showed you, put them 2 bars in, put that bar and it's a point, and the crank's got a hole in, the point goes into the crank. Make sure these are tight, but tighten them once that's in. So now we're just going to tighten that in, and hopefully it should pull that bearing off, but I think it will, because like I say, it's been cracking on that. You heard it there, that's the cracking noises I was on over before, so it's going to come off dead easy, which is good. That's the crank bearing off. There's a Woodruff key, what drives the flywheel. They're hard to get out, so I just normally leave them in. So now that's the easy part done. With the crank done on that, I'm going to get the other casing, put the crank seal in, and pull the crank into that other casing. And that's it there, just for another look. It's fatter. I'll probably just push in by hand as well. Pop the front spotted seal out and the gearbox seal, just so it's easier. Because we're going to be pulling the crank in. Just lube in the seal, and lube inside the bearing as well. So I'll get the crank pulling tool on it. So that's the crank pulling tool. So you put that bit on first. And that's double sided each side. Put that one onto there. And when you do it, make sure the con rod's sticking out of here. I'll tighten that up more. Just tighten it up, the more threads the better, because the last one I didn't tighten this in and it threaded this bit, and I couldn't buy this bit on its own, so I've had to buy a new one of these pullers. Pull that over, you get that bit of the crank tool, it's got a little notch there, I'll show in a minute. Just screws into that silver big bolt thing, and that's it. You don't need to tighten it up, it's tight enough. Screw this over, and that thing I've just been on about, the little rivet, fits over that when you put it on, so when we put it on it's going to fit over that rivet, if you can see it. Circle, you can tighten it up so it doesn't damage the crank seal and that. Right, that's that on, and I've just tightened that up so it's not hitting the crank seal. And we'll put a big nut on there. That's tight now up against the crankcase. So we'll just pull that crank into this case. I'm just going to turn the big nut on the end of this. It's a good sign when you hear it cracking. You know what's going in there, you see. Just put tape around the con rod. Just because I've got to hold that tool. The tool's spinning as I'm tightening it. And that's it. And that's the crank in. Just when as soon as it nips, stop. free. That's the crank in, and it's turning good. There's a gap down beside it, so that's good. And then the other side's all done on here with the gearbox in and everything. That case in there, what we've just done, just slides on the front. So now we're on this side, like I said before, we're going to be putting the shift shaft in with the 2 gear shafts, so all the cogs on, all in as one. You've got to put them all in, you've got to put it in as a unit. I'll set the selector forks up and show which way they go when we're putting it in this side. And I didn't know these little notches come out the selector forks, they just go in there. So just lube all the shaft. And that selector fork, what looks like that, goes on first. You've got the circlip at the bottom, that rests on the case when you put it in. So put that selector shaft on first. The selector fork, I mean, and you can see how easy it is. You've got that one, goes on that way. That's what it looks like. One's got, there if you can see it, R5 on for the right 5. That's got left 5 for the left side. So that's them. We put the shafts in. There's one shaft. It's got a washer there. I've normally got washers on, but it's got a circlip holder on, so it won't drop off. But there's that washer. I've already lubed it up, and that just fits on there. It's where the front spout goes, the bearing goes, and there's that washer. And there's his other shaft. There's no washers on the end because it's circlipped on. If you can see it, the little black one, nothing goes on there because the clutch basket fits on here. Put it all back together. There's the selector drum as well. I've lubed all in there, all the holes where the selector fork sliders have to go. So you put this all back as one unit. So you get the 2 shafts together that way. That's where the front spout goes. And that just slides into this casing over here. You cannot see it. Now we're going to put the 2 selector forks, which go into that groove and that groove. That's the 2 forks on now. You can see that circlip up there, but this will push down. The circlip goes into that hole. That one there. This goes into that hole, I mean, not the circlip. Anyway, just push that up. And now we'll put the selector drum on, which fits on underneath, because it slides into that hole there. And that's the keys all in now with the selector forks on. You can see the notches on the selector forks are in the runners. The top, that's the bottom one, that's the top one. So we're just going to slide the gearbox in this way now when it's all like that. Just remember not to lose this washer. That's the gearbox all in now. Just keep hold of it and tap it all down. And I'll make sure this selector drum isn't hitting the tabs, but it should be alright. Yeah, and that's went through. You can see it's missed the tabs. See the square tabs? Them triangles, if it's set up wrong like that, the triangle will snap them tabs off. So that's the gearbox in anyway. I forgot to put the centre fork in. I normally put them in different ways, but it was different on this bike. So in the middle runner, put that centre fork onto the middle runner of that cog, if you can see it. That runner there, it's just dropped. We'll get the middle runner, push it into there, and then when we push it back down, it'll slide into the middle runner of this here. So that's the middle selector fork popped into the centre runner. Now we'll put that in. I've already lubed it. We'll just push that through, and now it all just taps back in. And that's the gearbox in, all working. When you're changing gear, this turns, and then grooves lift the forks up. So I don't know if you can see it when I turn it, but it's lifting these forks and that fork up. So that's the gearbox in. I'm going to look for the washer for there. We'll get the gear selector shaft in, just clean all that properly and lube it, and lube the seal on the other side, what this is going to slide through. That's where the seal goes. You can see over time the black, I don't know if it's black rubber, it's just weighed the metal off, but we'll see if we can get that off. So I've cleaned it up the best I could with a wire brush, just lube it all up. And then before we push the gear selector shaft on, this spring here in my hand and that bit, look, have it like that, so that bit's resting onto this tab, that bit's going to be hitting your casing. So just slide it on, that'll go down that outer part, and you'll see that part of that part there is in the outer casing, and that part there is in the outer casing. Then you pull this up, the tension, and then it slides through that hole there, what the selector forks fit onto. You just push it on, and then when you push it on, there's a circle. There'll be a circle on here. You always fit it up to the circle, which is here. You see at the top. You always work in neutral, so we'll put that circle onto the top. If you look at the star thing, you'll see the one there, the very top, just near the wheel. It hasn't got a point on. All the rest have got points on. Oh, it's heavy. Oh. So we'll just push all that back now. As I say before, that's going through the circle, which you can just see through there. The bar what the selector forks fit on, what we fitted earlier, that goes over there. And then 2 squares off the spring off this have to fit over as well. Then you'll see that there. We want that lifted up and pulled back onto neutral, onto the circle, which I'll show. Do is pull it up because it's tensioned. Just pull it up and then push the gear selector back. That's the gear selector on like that. You can see the circle thing now at the bottom. It's resting on the wheel with the points on. See the wheel there? It's resting into the circle bit. That's in neutral now. Put a gear stick on the other end. I'm just going to try the gears. So that's first down. And up again. And up again. And that's up again. That's top gear there. No, it's not. There's another. That's as far as it'll go. Just keep this pushed on. And back down again. Back down again. That might be neutral. Oh, it's first. And you can see the circle one there. What hasn't got a point on, what I keep going on about. If you watch when I click it back, that's neutral. So we know the gearbox works, so that's good. So that's the gear stick in and that. So we'll get the kickstart shaft in now. This here just turns. You can see it just turning, so you can turn that to set it up. Anyway, and when you turn it, you can see that stopper goes onto that case. If this kickstart set up wrong, it'll smash through there when you kick it over. I've got a video on YouTube how to set these up because they've got notches on and that when you take them apart. Anyway, right, so we'll get notch the stopper up with the back of that. In fact, pull that, spin that around a bit. So put that on. I think that clicked it. I haven't looked, but it sounded like the stopper on the back of the kickstart shaft hitting the stopper on the casing. Anyway, there's tension on this. You push this down, and it goes into that hole there. But I think it's in because it's tight. If it's in wrong, there's no tension. And then you push into that hole. That's went all the way into there. And I'll show the stopper, where the stopper's stopped. And there's the stopper there, you can see it at the top. Just underneath my thumb, this way. That's the stopper there, hitting on the casing. So when you kick it over, it'll start, and when the kickstart comes back, it'll stop on that stopper, it'll not go back and smash this casing. Just make sure that that always pops out as well. Keep pushing that in, that spring on the top of the kickstart shaft. We'll just put in. Now put the kickstart idler on. That's it there. The YZ85's got like a line round there, like a groove, would fit that way onto the engine. This hasn't, so. And there's the two washers, they're just the same in the circlip, so we'll loop the washers up and then get this on. So that's one washer on, just if you can see it, lube it both sides. I've lubed on there. Kickstart idler cog next, just lube in there, even though that shaft's lubed. So you've got your next little washer, so you can lube around there, so it lubes the washer. Put the washer on. And lube on the washer, and we'll get the circlip on. And that's the circlip, so we'll just put that in there. That's the circlip in. So now we're going to put the clutch basket on. Just push it on, just push it on a tiny way, because tighten that up, the primary drive, and it tightens that way. But with these sockets, I kind of find my other socket, and they go up like that, so they're thin, so they're hitting the clutch basket. And that's how I'm tight. Now the clutch basket pushes on. Now there's a splined washer. I noticed the YZ85 didn't have a splined washer, it was just a circle, so that goes onto there like that. Inner part of the clutch to go on, the inner hub, there's the numbers at the top, just for reference, and that just slides on. A clutch holding tool onto there and there to hold this inner part steady, and there's a washer and a nut goes on there. That's the clutch holding tool on, that's the washer, and that's the nut. It's a conical washer. Faces that way, it goes that way onto the engine, so that goes onto there, onto there. Better to just put it that way, so it's resting down there on that side, so don't struggle it. And it tightens up that way as well, clockwise, so that'll be that tight. So that's that done. The clutch arm in. I just don't know where I've put the little spring, I'll just have a look for it. And that's the clutch arm, goes on like that, with that part of the spring at the top, and that part at the bottom, that hooks around there, and it just slides into the casing. That's the clutch arm in. That other bit goes under there, if you can see. That's the other bit of the spring on there. So it's tension now, like when it's pulled, it'll spring back itself. So now we'll put the push rods in. The YZ85 and the YZ80 are the same. That's the same size as well, just it's in the room. And check there, you can see where the ball bearing's been touching. Oh, it's on there's that one, that little one as well. So you want the with the lesser hole, whichever hole isn't as deepest, push that in so it's hitting the clutch arm on the other side. So we'll grease these up. That's that one all greased. Then we've got the little ball bearing. Just grease that. That's the ball bearing in. Then grease the other push rod. Just push that in. Just Get that bit of weight down. And that's the clutch working. When you pull this bar watch, you can see it moving. You'll see it push that out, the push rod. We'll get the clutch plates on now. I've had them soaking in oil up there. Don't know if you can see them up there in tin foil, like a dish with tin foil in. I've had them soaking in oil, so we'll be alright now. So first just lube around the back of there. Even though this top plate, what's going on first, is lubed. Just put some around there just in case. And at first it's one of those plates. It's one of those metal plates, and it's just like that all the way through. They're just the same. Some plates have a bump on there and you've got to set them, like with DTRs, you've got to set the bumps in the basket. But this hasn't that, so that just goes on anyway. It's the same all the way through, just next to the friction plate, which is one of those. Then a metal plate, then friction all the way at the end. I'm going to put the clutch pressure plate on now, and there's a pointer there what leads up to there it is, circle down the bottom, so just turn that round and that pointer leads up with the top of that pointer there, and there's the 4 springs and the washers to go on. I'll just get the windy to tighten them so far in because they take forever to get in. They need a little bit Loctite on each one. As you can see, it's got blue Loctite on them. You can just see a seal at the top. See it better on that one. So that's the 4 springs in. Loctited the bolts, all of them like that. So we'll put the bolts in just into a couple of threads. Then I'll get the impact windy gun, zoom them in, and tighten them up with sockets. So we'll just tighten these in because they take forever to ratchet in. Just don't go all the way in. Then I'll do the rest of them with a ratchet. Push that wire in there as well on the Kickstart shaft. And that's it, just tighten them till the nip, because it's just aluminium dead thin threads, plus it's Loctite anyway, so as long as you've nipped it, the Loctite's going to keep all them on. I'll put the reeds in. I've just cleaned all around there and cleaned all around the back of that, and there's a pointer there on the top that goes to the top. There's no gasket or sealer, and we've got that just clean all around there. That rubber band round there acts as a gasket for this bit, so we just put that on. Goes on that way with that bit at the top where the carb fits into. Just get the 4 bolts into there. That's the reeds on. Just tighten that one, that one, that one, that one in a sequence, and when you've tightened them, go around them again, check them, because they do slacken after you've tightened them. Just keep going round, just don't over nip them. We'll put the crankcase breather in as well, so just slide it through there, just pops in there like that. So now I'll put the stator on. I've got 2 of these. A lad's bike I fixed on YouTube. He bought one of these with a flywheel to go into his engine, and it didn't even need it, so he said I could buy it, or he'd give us it or something. Anyway, on these stators you've got that line there, and there's a line down there. I don't know if you can see it. It's just down there with my finger. I'll hold the engine up anyway, but that's got to line up with the stator. The stator on with that little notch down at the bottom. This wire just runs in there, and that plug goes in there, just like that. I don't know if you can see it. That's the lines. That's how you have it lined up. You can just give that a wipe if you see the bottom line. There's the lines, you have them lined up like that. Take the 2 screws and put them in, which are there, that size. They've got special washers on the back. Put the front sprocket on while we're on its 13 teeth. And now we'll put the flywheel on. That's why I always leave the woodruff key in the crank, because if you get to this point and you've took your woodruff key out, you try to put it in now, it's impossible to get in now when your stator's in and that. So it's best to just leave them in really. And that's why I've left that casing off on the other side, the clutch casing, because we're going to put a penny in again to lock all this crank to keep this still so it can tighten the nut. So just look for the gap, and the woodruff key's at the top, so it'll just slide straight over the gap. Normally if you look down it you can see it slide over. That's it there. So now we'll get the nut, and I think there's a washer as well. So now that's the washer, and that's the nut. It's a locker nut, that's the nut what come with it. So I'm just going to use that instead of taking bits off the other wise head. So just tighten that by hand. Then I'll get the windy gun on it, get the penny into the other side, a lock it to tighten that up. So to tighten it up, it goes clockwise to tighten. Get your penny, put it in the top of the cogs, so you're looking down behind the back of the clutch basket and the primary drive. Just turn your flywheel until the penny locks into the cogs. There, that's tight. There's the penny still wedged in there. So now, got this casing, just scrape all the old black gasket off, especially down here on the bottom of the engine. And that I should have had that all polished and clean, but it's not really bothering us, and I need to put the kickstart shaft in there. Once the engine's done I can take this casing off and get it repainted, but just for now, putting it together. So I can't find none of my thin screwdrivers, but this one will take it off. Just wedge it in there, just twist the screwdriver, that's it. It's a clip, so let's just drop that, the metal bar out the back of this. So take this off, there'll be a washer on the other side. That's where the metal bar goes. There's the front washer, there's the back washer there, which when we push the impeller out we'll be able to get that washer off as well. So we'll just get that washer. There's the impeller. Stator seal. There's a bit of it attached on there. What must have come out of there? So that's the kickstart part anyway. That bar, circlip, 2 washers the same. The bar goes in there. I'll show it when it sets up, because the bar fits through there. So now we're going to be fitting the water pump seal into the casing, and it goes in that way. They've normally got water side written there. That's at the top. That's the back of it. So when it goes on, that's facing out. Like I say, it's normally got water side written in there. So we'll get this in now. And the kicks, I've took the kickstart seal out. We'll push that in as well. So that's the water pump sealing, and the kickstart sealing as well. I've took the little notches out of here and here and put them into there, so it's easier to put the gasket on. Put the pump back on first. I'll just rub all that down with a wire brush. So that's the impeller wiped, just where the seal goes. The seal's got grease in. They normally come with grease. If not, put grease in yourself. Anyway, just slide that in. Turn it as you're sliding it. The little washer goes on the back. Then the little bar what dropped out, goes through that hole in the impeller. Get it like that. Then you get that cog with that gap in the back for the bar. That just slides on. That's it on the bar. Turning the impeller now. So now it's just the other little washer and the little clip to go on. Normally just put a pair of pliers on the back, pair of pliers on there, and just nip it together. So now we'll get the gasket and put it around there. Just make sure that's in what it's in, but just that's always sometimes pops out, like I've been saying. Just make sure that's in. So that's the gasket. Just slide that on. Make sure it goes over that one and that one. So put the case on now. What I like to do, instead of just pushing it on, and then when the casing's nipped, putting your bolts through, because the gasket always moves and you end up ripping your gasket. Just put it on. There's a gap about that much in between the casing and the other casing. Then get the bolts and put the bolts through here, and then watch the bolts going through the gasket into the holes on all of them before I nip them up. So we'll do that now. And they're the bolts I've put in so far. I can't find the other bolts, so and I need 30mm, which goes in there, and there. So I'm just going to put them in, push them in, screw them so I can see them going through the gasket. That's them all on now. You can see there the screws through the gaskets. That's why I leave a gap in the casings. All the screws are through, each screw. Screwed them all in. That screws through the gasket, just you cannot see it. That screw is there, down there somewhere. That's all the bolts in now, tightened up properly. I haven't put the water pump casing on yet. Kickstart's on. I'm going to have to get the bolt and put a bit of Loctite in there. But it's just ready to go into the frame now, because I haven't ordered a piston yet. Or I would have put the barrel and head on, but this video has went on a bit too long. So we'll put the casing on. I've got the gasket for it. That's the casing. So I've put the gasket on there because there's no way of keeping it onto there. And that's the 4 bolts for the gasket, so you can't damage the gasket. And that's the bottom end done now. I will need to take that case off to get the chain on. But that's everything. It's all alright. Now I'll put the bottom end into the engine, just so I can finish the video and get a thumbnail of the engine in the bike. So I'm going to put the bottom end in. I bought a new back swinging arm bolt, because this one, when it was in, seemed to come out too far. Anyway, when I took it out that way, so it's still sticking in the swinging arm that way. So I've just put that in there to keep this swinging arm right, so I can pull that whole swinging arm out. I gotta watch, because the bike's only holding up on a hoover. Not very much difference, if you can see that. This one's about 1/2 centimetre bigger, so we'll grease this up and push it in from the other side. And that's just how I had it, that's what I meant. So now it's like pushed in that part of the swinging arm, but not where the engine's going to be in. So I'll pull that bit out now. Right, I'll lift the bottom end in. That's it, the back swing arm's in now, which is the hard part. So that's the engine all in now. well, the bottom end anyway. Have to put the 2 mounts in the bottom, that one and the one in there. The bolt on the swinging arm, I don't know if I ordered another one, but at least that's in now. It's all good.